First is agenda changes. None? All right, if everybody can review the minutes of August 1st. I didn't have any
It
issues.
looked fine to me, I wasn't here though. But I will vote with the majority in lieu of abstention, so you have a,
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll vote with the majority in lieu of accept.
All right, next up is Frost Beer Works. Conditional use and site plan review for an expansion of a brewery located at Commerce Street.
I've got all these up, so when you're ready, or you want, whichever one you want to have up there first.
Yes, I have not really presented to you folks before, so I'm not exactly sure the structure of this, but basically what I'm requesting, you can see on this drawing here, the area on the left there, it's a small expansion of the existing building. It's a 20 by 48 building. The current building is 48 feet wide, and this expansion off the back would be adding 20 feet to that existing 48-foot width building. We're going the maximum extension that we can, which is 20 feet, which is allowing for a 75-foot setback from the stream in the back. We'd like to go bigger, but obviously we can't.
Gary?
Yep.
I'm just going to remind you that originally your approval was for a small area, you're now going to the entire building as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, as you can see from the drawing here, we do occupy the entire building. It used to be a printing company. The printing company moved out August of last year, so August of 16. We did obviously a lot of work inside the building to prepare it for brewing processes. So it's currently a brewery. This drawing shows the new canning line, which is that, you see the zigzag, if you move your hand right there, there you go. So that's a new canning line that we're putting in. It's actually going to be installed in about 3 weeks. But in order to can, you have to buy a lot of cans. And that area in the back that I'm proposing is the warehouse, is that's what it's going to be. So it's going to be unconditioned space, although it is, it's on a proper slab and everything, and it will be insulated and plywooded and all that, so it actually is fairly efficient, but it will not be conditioned. It won't have air conditioning or heating back there. But this drawing is showing, or this illustration is showing 25 skids. You have to buy 25 skids of cans, really, to get the price of the cans down to a point that they're even close to reasonable. And we just don't have the space in our building for 25 skids of cans, so expanding off the back is really the only option we have at this point.
And the front offices in gray, those are going to be in use? Or?
That area is actually currently empty. We at some point will likely turn that into a new tap room. But that is, right now, that we've shelved that project just until we get through this production expansion.
So you currently have a tasting.
Yeah, a little tiny
area,
tasting
right?
room.
Yeah.
That in the bottom right-hand corner, right there,
Yep.
that's our current tasting room. It's actually extremely small. It's more of, we do tastings there, and we do special events occasionally and serve pints and things like that, but it's quite small. It's really primarily for selling bottles and growlers out of the brewery. And we're open Fridays from 4 to 7, and Saturdays from noon to 7. We'd like it to be extremely high traffic. It's not always the case, but we get a reasonable flow of people coming in to buy bottles of beer.
And I would say, for disclosure, my wife worked for you when it was the printing business.
Oh, she did?
Yeah.
Excellent.
So she no longer works for you, so I don't think there's any issues.
Right,
as far as-
understood.
Just to put it out there. Her office is now the lab, looks like.
So you've
Yes.
you've added your landscaping plan.
Yep, we put the landscaping plan in, and this is something Bob Wall put together for us. And I understand it's 3% of the overall budget, or 3% of the total budget has to be allocated to landscaping. And obviously I'm prepared to do that. We're estimating about, and it looks like it's going to end up being around $60,000 for that little 20 by 48 foot expansion. So, $1,800 is obviously what I'm required to do. Currently, this proposal from Bob is like $2,600, which I don't have an issue with the additional money. In talking to my wife about some of the placement of these trees and such, the trees are fine. I'm not quite certain that we want to put this row of rhododendrons, I think is what they're spec'd as. I'm not stoked on that plan. I would prefer to keep any place where the mice and stuff can hide, sort of, out of the plan. I would prefer to take that money and allocate it to possibly, a couple additional trees somewhere. Or there, I actually don't mind them being right where they are, I'm not very stoked on rhododendrons in that area, so. But as you can imagine, trying to get in, because these meetings are once a month, I wanted to get a plan in front of you guys so you could see that we're. Excuse me?
Twice a month.
Oh, they're twice a month? Oh, but I was gonna miss the next meeting. It was gonna get pushed out, I think, a full month if I missed this meeting, right?
Oh, but anyway.
Well, anyway, so, basically, we wanted to get something in front of you from a landscape plan standpoint. This was a bit of an afterthought, because I think I heard about this, 2 weeks ago, but I was leaving for vacation, so it was kind of difficult to coordinate it. And so it came a little last minute. But I'm committed to the 3%, absolutely, and doing something that's gonna be done tastefully. And I think this is a reasonable plan. Like I said, I mean, given the lack of detail in this plan, I'd hate for you folks to say that's exactly what you have to do, because I don't really think that there's been, probably enough thought put into what we do from a landscaping standpoint. But again, we're not dealing with a huge budget either.
When would that happen?
As soon as I get approval, effectively, because I'm gonna have Bob, I'll start working with Bob Wall to get the stuff put in. Again, his proposal is $2,600, okay? Where I'm only required to do $1,800. So, I mean, already I feel like the rhododendrons are probably, I don't know, just from a budgetary standpoint. I don't know if replacing the rhododendrons with trees is gonna cost me more money, but either way, I'm fine with
And that's toward the stream anyways, isn't it?
Yeah, correct. It's in the back of the building. Yeah.
So that was one thing in our packet, there was a picture that I think Alex provided and some circles and arrows, and he seemed to be focusing more on the front of the building, which tends to be screening the parking is one of the things.
Gotcha.
So putting it all behind the building where
Yep.
it's already screened by the building and there's nobody on the other side to look at it. To me, I wonder about what's the benefit of putting the shrubbery or whatnot back there as opposed to like out in front of the.
One thing just to mention is that there are a lot of trees that are out front
Yeah,
here.
it has a
There's
row of
actually a row of
trees.
trees here. And I think on the adjacent property, there's a row of trees over here, if I'm not
Yeah, there's,
mistaken.
the front of the building is, there's trees that run all along the road there, and there's trees that run along the parking lot, on the right side of this drawing, that separate us from this self-storage unit. And again,
Yeah.
so that you see the trees are to the right, so they're between the road and the parking lot. So I think that tree that is on the drawing would actually be right where that circle was. Actually, where both of those circles are, that we've kind of identified, which would be pretty good places to
Right
put
here
trees.
and over
Yeah,
here.
there and there, exactly.
Those two.
That's right.
So trees are one form, but you can also have some lower lying bushes or something.
Right.
Because one of the things is to try to block the view of the parking.
Correct.
Trees grow up
Yep.
and you look through the trunks.
Yep.
So that would be my only suggestion to consider would be if there's some left in the budget.
Right.
That some lower shrubs or something around the, kind of right around that uppermost.
Right where the edge of the
Parking
parking
area.
lot is there,
Yeah.
And again, I'm actually, my statements around shrubbery and things, you know, them being like mice havens, on that corner of the parking lot really doesn't bother me at all. But things over close to the building, you know, it's, when it gets cold, they tend to, you know, build nests in those areas, and then they tunnel under, and they just slowly get their, you know, work their way into your building.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be opposed to doing that either, and I don't think that would, you know, one of the other issues with trees that we talked about is putting a tree up in that corner, and we don't want to also, you know, obstruct the view of our signage. You know, we want people that are driving down the road to be able to see, hey, oh, there's Frost Beer Works, you know. And so I mean, the idea of putting shrubs out there that will block the view of the parking lot but not affect the view of the front of the building, I think is a pretty good idea.
So maybe where you were going with the question about when, is like, were you saying when you would have the plan? Because we have to have an approved plan, we have to have a plan, a final plan before we can actually approve it. It's not you approve the conditional use and then later come up with the site plan. So, because that's how they tell whether or not you're in compliance or not in compliance, whether or not you've met that plan. So that's why when we make an approval, there should be a landscaping plan in place, not, we're sort of thinking this, so.
No, I got it.
Yeah.
So, I guess I missed the first minute or so of this. You're significant, I'm all in favor of this, conceptually. You're significantly increasing your space. I assume you're increasing your brewing capacity.
Yes. Brewing capacity.
So where does the water for that come from? The town?
Comes from town, correct?
And you're okay, is the town okay with all, I mean, we've had
Bailey's.
water
Yeah,
supply
yeah, I'm within
issues.
my, yes, I'm within.
And we're
my-
not on 720 gallons a day. They must use
That's what
multiples of that.
that's my allocation, 720, yeah, we're still under that.
I just, yeah, it
For
was
a
a general
brewery?
question, because
Really?
I thought
I can show
the,
you, yeah, I mean, we don't do 720 gallons a day is a lot, it's a lot of water.
It doesn't sound like a lot for that.
Well,
Well,
big.
I hope we get to the point I gotta come back
Okay,
and talk
well,
about
I'm-
water.
I'm
I know we
naive
talked
then.
about this a little bit, but,
I made beer myself. and-
yeah.
Okay.
so was it foam that they had like 4,000 a day?
I don't remember the exact.
Yeah,
number
that's a lot. I mean, I have a very detailed spreadsheet, and I mean, I know how much water we use. I could show you guys the numbers. I went through this with the water department about dealing with everything. More actually on, well, I was focused more on the wastewater side, but certainly the usage side, we're well within our allocation.
Okay, well, good luck to you.
Well, I'm happy to share the spreadsheet with you.
No, I'm not questioning your numbers.
I mean, you know, 700. That's 21 barrels a day. That's what that is. That's a lot of beer. You know.
But what have you been doing now with a much smaller space?
Well, brewing beer, but what's the question?
Well, you're multiplying by a factor of 6 the space. Are you multiplying by a factor of 6 your brewing capacity?
No, well, this is part of the reason I'm here is to get approval for the space for cans. Okay, you can see the entire back half of the building is warehouse space. Okay, we're putting in a canning line that takes up a lot of space. So there's a lot of what we used to operate in is that bottom right hand corner there. Okay, and you can see the small tanks in there.
Okay.
But we didn't have any space for anything. Okay, so now we just have more space because we need more space. So even as you produce twice as much, you need like 3 times as much space for all of the cans and bottles that you use and grains. It's basically a lot of space is allocated to warehouse space.
He has to buy a certain amount of cans to get the price.
Right. Yeah, so it's not really in, I mean, we were super squeezed up. So yeah, we were doing about 400 barrels a year out of that little space in the bottom. But we were doing literally we would get our bottles the day we bottled. We couldn't even take a delivery of bottles prior to bottling. And we had to move we couldn't even get our bottling lines set up until we received our bottles. So we had to sit there and wait for them to bring the bottles, move the bottles in, and then move the bottling line out, get it all set up, bottle everything. You know, it was just a lot of moving around. So we've gone from having no room to the interim stage where we had a ton of room, and now we're just basically now growing into that room.
So this is bigger than Fiddlehead would,
No,
is now,
Fiddlehead
isn't it?
Fiddlehead is monstrous compared to us.
They, just in that one building?
Even in their small building, they do about
Do they have
8,000.
another,
They just built a new big brewery, yeah.
oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they built a big brewery that's capable of, I think their new brewery is gonna be capable of 20,000 barrels a year. Their current brewery is 8,000 barrels a year, so you've seen that size, the size of their brewery. That's an 8,000 barrel a year brewery. The way that we're set up right now, we're capable of about 3,000 barrels a year.
Well, go Heinsberg and catch up on that.
Yeah, I know. But the 3,000 barrels a year literally will put me right on the edge of my water allocation. So when I see that, you know, I mean, obviously I'm gonna have to talk, you know, but I know water's a little bit of a scarcity right now, so I don't know that bringing that to, you know, I don't even know how we would get approval, who I talk to about approval for, you know, getting
through
some.
that process.
Yeah. But I certainly want to do that, because I know when I get to the point that we're producing upwards of 3,000 barrels, we're gonna be utilizing pretty much all of our allocation. What I expected would happen is we just get our bill would just show an increased rate for whatever is up over our allocation. I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but I would expect it. I mean, that's how it works. I know in California, when you use over a certain amount of water, they don't shut your water off. You just get paid. You just get charged this higher rate for the additional water. But so I'm happy to draw something up. But what again, I was in a little bit of a rush for this landscape.
Are we talking about landscaping?
Yeah, landscape.
My thought on that is, okay, you're gonna come in either at budget or over budget. I don't need, for my personal purposes, an exact plan now. Give you 60 days to come up with a thoughtful plan. That if it doesn't persuade the board, you're gonna have to either come back with something else, or we can
Right.
revoke your conditional use approval.
Right. I think that's fair. I do have, my brother-in-law's a landscape architect, and he was, and truthfully, we're gonna come up with a new master landscape plan for the entire facility, which will probably be much, I'm guessing is gonna be far more, from a budgetary standpoint than what we're doing in this little thing. So coming up with that plan now and presenting that, you know, it's gonna take some time to work through that, and I don't know that, you know, I'll be totally honest with you, the reason I'm doing this stuff is so that I can, you know, meet the needs of the town in terms of what's required. But I would like to have a long-term, a proper landscaping plan for the entire facility.
I think we're all flexible and giving you a little bit of leeway and figuring that out.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, I'm fully committed to not only meeting the requirements. I mean, I have no interest in just throwing stuff in there. I want it to look good, as much as you guys do. I would hope more, really, because it's my property and it's my livelihood and it's my.
So
brand.
are you renting the building? Are you gonna buy it? or-
I own the building.
You do?
Yeah, so I own the building. That's right. I've owned
Is
the
that a
building.
recent acquisition?
No, I've owned that building since 2002.
So you're the lessee for the printing?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's the
So
reason.
the
I moved-
lessor.
Lessor, that's right. That's the reason I moved into that space was, you know, the previous tenant.
No, there's always an
Chandler.
interesting question in my mind, is how you wound up there.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Well, I owned the previous printing company, and I sold that printing company to John Cunningham, who operated that printing company for.
M's and M's
Quite some
into
time.
beer, huh?
That's right. It's
Okay.
the building is much happier right now than it ever was. It's
Sounds like Ben Franklin.
yeah. It's actually I'm really I've liked Heinsberg in this building since I bought it. But I always felt like, you know, I was in the printing business for years, but this is, I don't know, I take a lot more pride in the building when I have that, that type of equipment inside the building. Although I took a lot of pride in my printing company too, I must say. Just that it's a totally different thing. People look at printing, at breweries and they can really appreciate it. And printing's a little difficult these days to get that level of appreciation,
Will the board members have any other questions?
So the covered bump outs or whatever, pads on the top side of this
Uh-huh.
picture, those are all three, they're there
Yeah,
already?
they're already there,
Okay.
yeah. And, they're just from, purely from a budgetary standpoint, there was a lot more money spent in those than had ever been invested in those types of things. We had AC units out there that ice had fallen off the roof over the years and smashed them. So we went through multiple iterations of different sort of shelters to stop the ice from crushing our AC units. But totally different thing when you've got a condenser sitting out there, or you've got a super expensive glycol chiller. You end up building things that look nice and that look stable and secure. I'm guessing you people have gone by the building over the last 2 years. It looks like there's a proper operation taking place there, and it's not something that's being shoestringed. And that's, obviously, I think that's, like I said, that's really just a different in terms of the budget.
Anybody here from the public?
Well, I would make
Greg,
a
I'm gonna let
motion
you make the
to
motion.
close the public discussion or public hearing and direct the staff to draft a revised approval that reflects a more sophisticated landscaping plan within 60 days.
All right, if you want, we could try to edit that, and if you want, we could deliver it then after the last hearing. You can add a couple of lines to it. if you want.
Why don't we just take it up into a session and work on the wording? It's pretty good except for that, I think.
Yeah, just that was the one missing part.
Yeah, the only question I had was on order number 6, where it talks about all exterior lighting, including any existing lighting and sign lighting, shall be installed shielding it down in a shielded manner. The only thing I questioned was even mentioning sign lighting, so there are no lighted signs currently, right?
Well, there's a light over the front door.
Which I think was approved at a previous.
That was approved at a previous, that's correct, yeah.
But that's not a lighted sign, because lighted signs go
Right.
through a special, you have to have a
There's no
special.
proposal to change the existing
No.
signage.
All right,
No.
then let's just say all existing and,
Because the only reason I'm even questioning it was because by putting it in there, it makes it sound like, oh, well, I could add lighted signing.
Gotcha.
If I do it in a
That's-
downcast manner, but you have to, it's a special approval that you have to come back for lighted
Yeah,
signs.
we're not doing
so,
anything
you know,
like
let's
that.
just take those 3 words out. Absolutely, good catch.
Okay. All right, and we can talk about the rest later.
Unless you'd like to try to do something right now with it, it's your choice.
Nothing's gonna happen in the next 60 days, so I don't think we have to try and wordsmith right now.
Well, I think, you're getting ready to put your addition on, right?
Yeah,
You
Like,
can still do that, right?
Like soon.
No,
Yeah.
we're proposing, give them 60 days.
Oh,
to
yeah.
come back
Yeah.
with
oh, yeah.
Right.
So we could just simply, if you want, we can do this after the other hearing.
It's just, yeah, let's do it after the hearing. I move to approve, direct staff to direct amended conditions of approval.
I was like,
All those in favor?
all right.
Aye. Thank you.
thank you,
Yeah, thank
appreciate
you.
it. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Have a good night. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, next is Sophia Morton and Jesse Paul.
They have requested, they have actually,
Withdrawn.
they have, they're looking to, in the near future, reapply under different regulations, and they have withdrawn this application.
Okay, so we don't really need to do anything with that then, right?
I was a little puzzled by new regulations. I mean, so what are they banking on? There's no
They're
guarantee
looking-
regulations change.
Exactly, but basically
But they're banking on it.
the whole situation with the definition of lot area, where you have to have 3 acres of contiguous area that is not split by a private right-of-way, and which basically limited them in the way in which they could actually subdivide. So, and I think Alex in a couple of meetings has talked about this a bit, how that's one of the housekeeping changes that the Plan Commission is looking into changing.
Okay, so they are actively
They are actively
considering
doing
that
it.
particular, okay, all right,
So in a year or two, they plan on coming back.
okay.
All right, next is Stephanie Spencer subdivision revision to change the driveway access.
And I just want to mention that there was a public comment, or I should say a comment written to me from from David Haber and Robin Edelman. Just simply, their concern is there's a house sale that's coming in. They don't want any of the work to occur on their property until the house is actually sold. So I have that written to me, and I did add something in the draft decision on that. So just to mention that, and just that they are interested parties in this hearing.
So,
Okay.
So we're not proposing to hear any presentation on this, which I'm okay with, but.
I don't know,
Well,
and
I don't know, I mean, whatever,
Yeah.
if there's any questions, I can answer them, or,
Oh, you're here on behalf of,
yeah, I'm,
oh, I'm sorry, I missed
yep,
that.
I'm Andrew Stolberg. I
Sorry.
am the son-in-law of Stephanie Spencer.
Are you buying that property then?
My mother is.
Okay.
My mother, well, I'm sorry, my mother is buying David and Robin's property.
That's neat.
And she's going to be right across the driveway?
I had to twist her arm a bit, but she said, okay, as long as I plow it.
so why aren't we considering this once that property actually changes hands? It seems like we're putting the cart before the horse. We're making an approval for a right-of-way that the current landowners will not agree to. As long as they own the property, is the way I understood reading through all the stuff. As long as they own the property, they are not interested in providing the right-of-way.
So my understanding is that this amendment is just to look at the plan of putting the driveways together. My mother, who is in the process of purchasing that house, David and Robin's house, is fully on board with this. I have a plan here of an amended plan to the driveway. I don't know if you guys don't have a copy of this, do you? You do, okay.
And I should also mention that David and Robin did mention that they are fine with this application going forward. They have
Yeah.
no problem with the application.
Yeah.
So,
And I
I
have
don't
that
want to
written.
interrupt, but I will interrupt to answer Dick's question as a lawyer trying to pretend not to be a lawyer. Dick, your question addresses the ripeness issue. Why are we as a board considering this when nothing has really happened to change what we approved? And maybe we're rendering an anticipatory or advisory opinion on something that could not happen. On the other hand, on the town level, I don't want to enforce these legal issues of standing and ripeness and so forth. We can issue, I think, just sensibly as a body of sensible people, a conditional approval that would expire if one set of circumstances does not exist, but would go into effect, assuming, as everybody does, that something else happens. I don't have any trouble with that, being a lawyer and a technocrat, and
okay, I didn't want something
if
on the
we're-
books that
if we were talking
potentially-
about Hannaford's going into a place like that, where we devote a year of hearings on something that might not be necessary, I'd have a different view entirely, given the very local nature of this and the family nature of this. I'm very comfortable going forward.
Yeah, they could easily have come in with a proposal to take their driveway off this existing drive, and that would have been fine with us, right? And
Yeah, and that Dick's point is still, it's still anticipatory.
Yeah, and so right now, I mean, the current owners, I'm sorry, I forget their names, you know, in their deed would have to be a right-of-way written into their deed.
Yeah.
They're not gonna write it into their deed because it's not gonna happen until, your mother purchases the property.
Correct.
So we'd basically be approving something that implies a right-of-way that isn't listed in any deeds, and wouldn't be listed in deeds until the sale actually happens. So if we condition it in some manner that says, you know, this is null and void.
I mean, from a selfish point of view, maybe if I were Mitch, I might have said, look, this is not ripe, because this has not happened, and Mitch might have rejected it. He could have, and I think the board would have defended that until this actually happened. It seems like it's going through the process, and it doesn't make sense from a staffing point of view to say, okay, this is unripe, and 2 months from now, if this really happens, which is probably gonna happen, we're gonna go through the same process. Let's as town people just be kind of sensible and deal with this in a smart way.
Okay. So I will hold judgment until I see our final conditions of approval. Because I'm with the rest of the board, or at least I think the rest of the board, I don't see any problems with this. This looks like a perfectly
Makes it-
feasible
It makes it a lot better.
solution.
A lot less driveway,
You're well under your
takes care of the
10,000.
stormwater.
So if you do want to add some parking or some more impervious, you shouldn't be right on the edge of breaking the 10,000, so.
Yeah,
It actually reduces it like by between 2,000 and 2,500 from quick calculation.
which is good.
So you're planning, the traditional plan is to come off the driveway where you've shown it,
Correct.
the hatch line?
If the land isn't sold.
I'm sorry?
No,
If your mother doesn't buy the other land, you just come off.
Then we would,
existing.
the existing, what we have already been.
Approved for.
Yes, correct.
And the slopes there are gradual, right? Here, so where
Oh,
it
yes.
connects the two together?
Yep.
Yeah, I'll also just mention that if they do go with this new plan, they just need also approval for development on a private right-of-way, which means that they need the 50-foot right-of-way, they need to expand the shared driveway to either 18 feet or 14 feet with a pullout, which they actually are
There's one right
proposing
there.
over here.
Yep.
And of course, the deeds that would have to be added as well, would
So
be a
did-
requirement.
Are you okay with what Mitch has in here for conditions right now? In the order, no construction on the neighbor's property shall occur as long as the neighbors own the property.
Not sure we can do anything other than grant that.
And then what's the other,
If it doesn't, get passed, it just reverts back to,
Recorded
they can build according to
That's number
the
6,
existing
right?
plan.
yeah,
Order number 6 addresses that.
I personally think that takes care of it. Does anybody else?
I agree.
We don't want to put a time limit on that property transfer?
Well, there is a,
I think that time limit will be that if they wanna build their house.
and not only that, you have the, there's also one other time limit as well, which is not being readjusted in this, but is that of the recording of the Mylar. And this doesn't give the applicants more time, they still have to do it to the same time as the June 11th decision. 180 days from that, and yes, the zoning administrator can give an extra 90 days, but that doesn't change with this revision, they still have that same deadline. So,
So can they just record the Mylar to the original plan and then
That
they
they
just
could-
amend the Mylar?
then they basically, if they do the original plan, then this approval would then become null and void.
Yeah, you can't change it. Once you've recorded it, it's a final subdivision. It's
One,
in the land record.
And actually, part of the reason why
One
they were able
exists
to
of
do
the
it
other,
this
but not
particular
both.
way. I'm sorry?
one exists of the other, but not both.
Right.
But
Yep.
I'm just, sorry, I'm being,
And it's just
Picky on
simply
it.
the recording the Mylar that would actually take place on that, and they do have that time limit with the recording of the Mylar.
Well, maybe I ought to say that. If the Mylar of the original application is ever recorded, that extinguishes this application.
Let's see. Should the transfer... Actually, number 6, should the transfer of the neighbor's property not occur, the applicant can record the Mylar based upon the June 11th, 2017 decision and revert to the conditions of that approval.
No, I saw that. I'm not sure that is quite on all fours with what I was saying. If they do choose to record that, that extinguishes this application. Because they're not necessarily, they may be mutually exclusive, but I'm not sure.
Well, why don't we just add to number 6?
Yeah.
That's what I was just saying.
should-
If they record the Mylar, that extinguishes this current application.
No, they can always come back for
Yeah, of course they can.
a modification to the subdivision after that, but
So you have 180 days from your decision to,
From the last decision. to
Right.
Record the Mylar.
And that's,
It doesn't-
right, and the reason why it doesn't restart it is that you're doing a revision, this is not there's a provision in the
Wait just a
regulation.
second. We're not encouraging him to record the Mylar because he wants to change it. We're proposing a condition would say, if you record the Mylar of the original approval, that would extinguish this application, which you don't want to do.
Right, okay, so, okay, that's actually good.
So
because-
don't rush into doing that, but we want to hold you to some kind of deadline
Okay,
to get something done.
so the purchase of the other house you want done before your 180 days is up?
before we
Record the Mylar,
record
right?
Mylar, okay,
Because the
so,
Mylar, you want this new revision on it, not the old one.
okay,
Right, and you can't record that. I mean, they can't record a Mylar showing this until that property is actually, the deed has been modified and everything else that allows the right of way.
Okay.
And part of the reason why the applicants have explained to me why they want this at this time is the closing is scheduled for September 8th, and they really want to get started on this on the 9th.
yeah, we were
And this way
hoping
they
this
have-
Okay.
May.
Right, there should be something in the order that kind of lets the lawyers know about this then,
Right.
because that's
Should
going to be
the,
important.
should the applicant, should the Mylar,
If the original Mylar is recorded, this approval, tonight's approval, shall be extinguished in words or in substance.
When is this 180 days up?
is-
June 11th, that'd be December 11th.
Yeah, so you're well within,
yeah, okay. Now, I have a question, which I might have to talk with Mitch afterwards, but my understanding is that I need that Mylar recorded before I can get a building permit?
that's true.
Okay, all right,
But you're not going to build until you figure out these
right, I'm just,
landlines.
there's just the process and trying to get
Yeah.
ducks in a
Yeah,
row
you're not
type
going to
thing.
build on something that's not.
Correct, yeah,
Yeah, and before you leave, I have something here for you, so.
okay, all right,
Regarding that.
And Rawl should know all this stuff. And Stevie
okay.
too.
Okay.
You're the sacrificial lamb.
I know. You got a lot of cooks in the
Unless
kitchen
you're a
on this
land use
one.
lawyer.
so do you understand that?
Okay, can I, so,
Yeah, run
The
it by
original-
a series of questions, 10 questions. Yeah,
10
yeah.
questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so the original Mylar, which was approved, or the original plan,
Right.
which was approved the last time I was here,
Yep.
that Mylar is being created, and I was going to present, or
Are you
turn that
telling us it
in.
is being created?
Well, just today, I was under the impression that I needed that for the building permit. I didn't know that I couldn't have that submitted, which would then void this.
Right.
So I
Because
need
it's
to
a
amend.
change, right.
Okay,
And the way the rules are is, this type of hearing is allowed as a non-warned hearing in between the time of your decision and the recording of the Mylar.
okay,
So that's why you're able to do this type of revision now, because there isn't a recorded Mylar.
okay,
If you did this afterwards, you'd have a much bigger process
okay.
in order to actually change it.
I bet Ted did not even know that rule.
Yeah, I don't know what I did.
It's in the
Okay.
subdivision regs, and actually it's listed in the draft decision here.
I mean, were you
But-
hoping to start building before September 8th?
No, but I was hoping to have people at the starting line.
Okay, question 2.
So,
Well, you can still have that, and you have to have your new Mylar with the new.
I mean, it
thing.
doesn't
So
take
it
long to
just-
get a
Right,
building
and the
permit.
right of way and all that,
right,
yeah.
okay,
And this way, you're gonna record one
Mylar.
one Mylar as to the way you really want it.
Okay,
And you don't have to come before us again with a warrant hearing and all
Okay.
that stuff.
Yes.
all right. So,
We're scary, aren't we?
well, I'm just trying to figure this all out.
Trying to help you.
And you guys are being very helpful. I do
But
appreciate
besides,
that.
you can't build your building until you have the access. You don't want to pay
Correct.
for the new access. So even though you have to wait now till after the sale, and hopefully everything goes well
Yeah.
for you on that, but it's not really delaying you in that sense.
Okay, so I
If
can
something
have,
comes up and it doesn't look like it's going well, then you can put the Mylar in, get your building permit, and go the way it
And
was.
this will be
do
null
the
and
way it
void.
was, yeah.
And you've
okay.
got incredibly helpful staff who
Yeah.
He has been very helpful,
Well,
yeah.
you still have 9 questions.
So
I
you-
do.
Your lawyer's gonna have a lot of work to do. They have to get that deed written with the right of way and,
Yep,
and you have to transfer the property and.
Yeah.
Who is that, by the
Is
way?
there some surveying? I assume you have to do some surveying
Yeah.
to
so the,
mark it.
to
Yes.
mark the
The
driveway.
the right of way. Boundaries.
That new 50-foot right of way has to be surveyed, yeah.
And that has
Okay.
to go on the
On the
Mylar.
Mylar,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. So, our lawyer is Joe Fallon?
Yeah, so
He's-
he knows all the rules and regulations here.
Okay,
Yes, and you're also using, I know Chris Haggerty,
Yep.
they're very good, they'll do
Okay.
their thing.
all right. Like I said, a lot of cooks in the kitchen. That was Stevie taking care of Joe and Chris.
I'll
and
just
then-
say, you have a lot of good cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah. Well,
So development on a private right of way, is that, you're limited to 2?
no,
No, it's
Is
just
there- I
basically.
thought there was a
you have to
limit
have-
on how many you can
Everything
have
has
on
to
a
be
private.
approved.
Yeah.
No, just, it has to be approved by this
Okay.
board.
All right.
Okay.
And that's why it's added to this decision, and similar type things as talked about beforehand. But really what it requires is the 50-foot right-of-way, the improvements to that driveway, and the shared maintenance agreement.
Mhm.
And information, which there's information on a draft with the information that has been provided as far as language that could be in a draft. And
So-
basically, before, I think we put in the decision before, is it transfer, before CO? I think it's at the time of transfer, all that information has to be recorded, reviewed by the zoning administrator and recorded.
So, assuming this little diversion were undertaken, my recollection is this is a fairly flat plot, anything. Probably use all those, what are they called? Descriptions. Consonants? Not consonants.
Actually, you've got, the driveway is.
Is there
like a high-
are there stormwater issues that would require any kind of culvert or anything in there if we reconfigured that?
I don't, I mean, we still have the culvert there.
Vowels is the word I was looking
Which
for.
would, which would go there, and we're still planning on doing that. The current
That's always
drive,
gonna be there, it looks like.
yep, and the current driveway of David and Robin's driveway has a few stormwater,
Culverts.
yeah, already in
So-
place.
Mitch, did our original approval require anything on water flow, stormwater,
All
anything
we
like
actually
that?
did was, because they were under the 10,000 square feet, they just needed to explain how they were going to convey the stormwater.
And have they
And-
explained how they would do that in light of the proposed reconfiguration?
They basically would utilize what they have here in the existing. I believe there is a culvert somewhere in this area, I believe.
Yep,
And this
So
culvert
there is
here.
an explanation.
Right, but the other aspect is, and you mentioned topography, and interestingly enough, and if you could kind of confirm this, I believe this is like a relative high spot right over here where the driveway happens to be.
it is a high spot, yeah, and actually the driveway up to David and Robin's house at the fork starts to go up,
Mhm.
and ours stays fairly level.
Right, but this area over here, if I'm not mistaken, stormwater over here kind of goes the ground starts to go down in this direction.
Not in that direction. It's straight up to the,
So it goes down in this direction,
it goes straight up to the house where where the cursor is like right now,
right?
and then on the other side it goes down.
Okay.
So it's not a large area.
So the water kind of
Collecting
flows
water.
away from,
For a good portion of the property, yes, it flows away.
Because I know that this driveway over here, the entrance is like at a high point.
It's right at the top of Turkey Hill.
I guess we just need some kind of statement that this reconfiguration is not gonna exacerbate anything that we had previously considered.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be actually better. Is
But I
that,
think we need something from an engineer that's gonna say that. Or,
As a condition.
what is in there?
Number 8.
What, like number 8 under findings, under finding, you mean?
Well, I'm just in the order, I guess you should have finding too.
No, I don't see it number 8.
Well, I would add number
Oh,
8 to
adding.
the order, yeah.
Okay.
So prior to the issuance of a zoning permit, permit,
Assessment?
an engineered assessment,
We're not asking for an engineered plan, right? I mean,
no, just an assessment. An engineer, a letter, or do you want a statement, a written statement?
Sure.
Statement
Are there
from,
levels of legal engineering opinions as there are legal opinions?
Yep.
from an engineer.
Licensed engineer?
From a licensed engineer,
That the proposed reconfiguration of the access would not degrade,
impact stormwater runoff.
Impact.
adversely impact stormwater. Yeah. And
that
something
the
to
prepared
that effect.
reconfigurations
That's
would
right out of the regulation.
not adversely affect,
Stormwater flows affecting adjacent properties.
to okay. Prior to the issuance of a zoning permit, a written statement from a licensed engineer that the prepared reconfiguration.
Proposed.
That the
Proposed.
Can't read your own handwriting.
I missed that one though. The proposed reconfigured, actually probably, all right, proposed reconfiguration would not adversely affect stormwater flows on adjacent properties, or to adjacent properties.
Sounds good?
Which is their own.
Yeah.
Well, in the future, it may be owned by somebody else, that's the thing.
Yeah. And they don't own it yet.
So do you have any other questions for us?
I guess I can get the updated Mylar with this on there, not submit it to the town for record until after the sale with the David and Robin goes through with my mother,
Yeah.
at which point I can be issued a building permit, and then at which point,
We can help you with that. Basically,
Okay.
right now, and our zoning administrator has to either deny or deem what you've
Right.
submitted as incomplete.
okay.
And I think she's contacted you.
She has contacted me, and that's why I started getting this Mylar thing moving again.
And
Thinking
you don't
that
want to
was
do
already-
that.
okay.
By the way, here's the check from that.
All right.
I have one question, if I may. Just the radius of those turns affecting emergency vehicles. I guess from the drawing itself, I'm not sure I can tell how wide they are and
Looks like at the
Is it
very end,
sufficient?
there's a hammerhead kind of turnaround driveway.
Well, you mean the new 50-foot right away?
right.
Well, there is that turnoff too, that they're proposing.
He just wants to make sure when you
That
come
they
off the
can get
driveway,
through
you can
there.
turn it.
Negotiate the terms.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, unless the emergency vehicle needs to go from our property, which is the house on the right, and turn onto what is currently David and Robbins, I think that's the only issue, but I don't see.
What, going
that-
up to their house, you mean?
Yeah, just because it's such a sharp turn, but I
Well, they
don't.
wouldn't have to do that, I wouldn't.
Correct, yeah.
Does that matter?
I wouldn't think
Yeah,
so.
it's a fairly lazy curve, and it's a fairly large U shape going up to the parking lot, which would be our house.
Well, I don't want to read John's mind, but maybe it's, if you come in at the new proposed access and then have to make the right and then the left to get back, how are we assured that they're going to be sufficiently wide and sufficiently angled that one of our fire trucks could actually get through there? Am I speaking to that correctly?
Yeah, I mean, it can happen, you pull into the wrong driveway and you gotta go to
Right.
the next one, so I guess I just asking you, is,
I mean,
is it sufficient?
I
Maybe
don't
it-
know. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's sufficient, or if, if they needed to turn around or just back up to go back up.
I mean, I don't know if
it-
that's a
My
requirement.
understanding, yeah, my understanding is.
Well,
that
I guess the whole
all-
point is, if, it's not a question of backing up and turning around, if, we just have a schematic there, we don't have any conditions that say how that little cutoff from the old driveway to the new will be configured, but it has to be configured in theory so that our fire trucks could make the right and then the left-hand turn. And I'm not sure we've ever really thought about conditions like that, but I guess I'm not
So what's
Sure,
the
it's-
width on that section, 12 feet?
Well, actually.
12 feet probably at the end.
14 feet.
14 to 18.
Is
is-
the 14 is the
14
shared,
comes
I
to
thought,
here,
right?
14 coming to here.
And then it can drop
and
to
it can-
12?
Exactly, it can drop to 12 in these two directions.
So clearly, the wider it is, the more turning radius there's going to be.
And more importantly, the shoulders right at the road cuts.
A point of interest, I mean,
No, it's a good thought.
I'm wondering
We never
if
really
we
thought about
should,
that
if we
before.
should make an order that that piece be 14 feet, until you negotiate the S-turn or something, just to make sure there's ample width for emergency vehicles.
I mean, we can require an engineering assessment that the proposed plan includes width and shoulders that allow for the entrance and egress of emergency vehicles of the kind Heinsberg has,
I think that's the best thing to do.
Yeah, just,
without getting too specific. It's a concept. Let the engineers be on the hook.
So order number 9.
They'll figure it out, you know.
Or maybe you can tack it on to A and B of order number 8, since it's also an engineering assessment.
Yeah,
Just,
sure.
it's another part of the engineering
So we
assessment.
could have an A, and then the B could be,
That all turn radiuses will meet requirements for
is there
emergency
a
vehicles.
standard?
Yeah, I don't think it has been. Good point, John. I
I
mean,
believe-
we haven't had a shuttle like this before, I don't think, where it could be an issue.
I mean, I know our lane's a straight shot, but the trees are so grown into it that I can imagine a fire truck could be dragging through the branches all the way down.
all right, do we have anything else?
So do we want to see a revised, I trust Mitch to capture all our,
I move to close the public hearing. Is it a public hearing?
No?
I move to approve the draft conditions as amended.
Dennis, you'll be our eyes on that, I assume, then?
I mean, I could put
Yeah.
once I put a draft together, I could send it to the five of you here if you like.
Fine, if Dennis reviews it when he signs it,
I think he knows what we want.
it's fine by me. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Don't do the Mylar. Hope we didn't confuse you.
At least don't record the Mylar.
Yeah, I'm gonna run out of here and call Stevie and say, stop!
Don't record.
The next questions you ask will have to do with
Actually-
your pre-stuff.
Don't record the one you don't want.
Actually, let me help you with this in one part. That Mylar, before it's recorded,
Yeah.
would have to be signed, usually it's signed by the chair of,
Okay,
I won't
sorry,
sign
Dennis.
okay.
But
Well,
when it comes
there's
to
your,
me,
Okay.
I would take a look at it. So I'm not, if hypothetically I got something, well, one, I would be reviewing it to make sure that it meets all the conditions
Okay,
that are set here
okay,
before even providing it to Dennis.
okay. All right.
So you've got that step as well.
Okay, excellent. So I could, in theory, get the ball rolling on this, have the Mylar to you prior to the sale being finalized, but just not recorded and given to you for signature. Is that correct?
Yes, and actually, because there isn't the challenge there is that if you actually record it, you would then, there may be some legal issues involved.
Okay. The whole point of this is that we were hoping to build in like June. We're in August now. And then my mom buying the house was a new development,
Yeah.
which changes things in our favor quite a bit. So we're just trying to make sure that we,
Yep.
And we're trying to help you out.
yeah, and I appreciate that, yeah.
So when the trigger's pulled, you build it,
Yeah,
go right ahead.
yeah,
So
that's the whole point.
The Mylar you would have drawn but not recorded.
Correct.
Would be the new
This guy,
approach.
yes.
So the right of way is gonna be shown on the Mylar, right? And does that
Yes.
have to be, it's representational of the actual survey dimensions, right? You can't just draw a dotted line on the Mylar, doesn't it have to be to scale and,
Yes.
Yeah.
so that means the survey has to happen
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
before the Mylar can be drawn.
Okay. All right.
So you may have a few steps that
Yes.
may take place.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that I'm taking those steps so that when I do get the go-ahead, we can go ahead,
Mhm.
rather than waiting for those next steps after we get the go-ahead.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you, guys.
And you know what? That condition with the turnaround, that may be something that might be required prior to a CO. Because they're gonna have to build it and then have it certified by an engineer that it can meet.
No, your design has to meet. You don't have to certify that.
Actually, that's true. We could put this in here as the design. A design will be submitted that will meet.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
how, that's how we'll do it.
Okay, excellent. All right,
Thank you.
thank you, guys.
Next is other business.
I can tell you that, I'm just gonna call up one little thing here, just my own little cheat notes here. Let you know that in the upcoming September 5th meeting, what was it, the O'Neill subdivision, somebody's gonna be coming in to amend that.
Okay.
A person with the last name of Laszlo. It's really a change of access that has already been approved by the select board, but it changes a bunch of conditions that were approved here in that decision. Eastman's coming in for a two-lot subdivision. This is one of the 10 to 12 acre ones. And first of that group that's actually coming in. We have an extension request for the Giroux subdivision PUD. That's the one off of Richmond Road. And we're supporting that because of the issues with the water. But Jason Barnard also wants to just show you, not that you're going to be making any decisions on it, but just kind of show you an updated sketch that he's going to have that will be eventually, assuming he gets his water, will be fully reviewed at preliminary. And we have an extension request for the Goodrich subdivision, Steve Picola's subdivision with the whole road issue, and nothing's changed on that, so you're gonna get.
3 years from this November when we first did the site visit.
So anyway, that's just basically what is coming up in, for the next meeting. And the other thing is, did we,
Sorry, before you move on, speaking of the 10, 12 acre things, the Morton Paul subdivision, they're not,
that's something totally different.
so,
They're
they're in the village or something, so they're not under the same? Okay, okay.
No, that's a different, actually, these 10 to 12 acre subdivisions, that's the ag district and the rural residential 2.
Okay.
Morton Paul is actually in the rural residential 1. That is straight 3 acre zonings, 3 acre zoning if you're not on municipal sewer.
Okay.
So it's 1 acre if you were. And the other thing is, I guess, okay, I'm just thinking of the Frost decision. Is there anything else we need to talk to about the Frost decision, or?
Well, we're going into deliberative session to figure it out. Or we don't need to. I have suggested wording if you want to just talk about it.
I'm fine with that.
On conclusion number 8, well, first on the findings. Find it? Under 8, after it says the applicant's landscaper, Rob Wallace, submitted plan, which includes 4 trees and mulch rhododendron plants, say that the applicant has requested additional time to prepare a more comprehensive landscaping plan. That's on findings, a fact. On conclusions, on number 8, instead of the 2 sugar maples, I would just say conclusion on landscaping. We would say a more comprehensive landscaping plan would be beneficial. End of statement. Order number 2 to change to say a comprehensive landscaping plan. Within 60 days, the applicant shall submit a comprehensive landscaping plan, obtain approval of the plan. All landscaping shall be installed by June 1, 2018. We're gonna start getting into the end of this planting season pretty quick here, so. And then take off the sign lighting that someone found.
Sounds good?
Sound good?
I may want to borrow that so I can.
Oh, yeah. I would move to approve as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Yeah, you can have that. Just keep it, yeah. We done?
Move to
All
adjourn.
that talk, I have to go home now.